What's up, everyone? All right, in today's episode, I'm going to break down all of my trades from the day. Now, today is a total surprise. I did not see this coming, and I certainly didn't expect this after my first two trades today put me in the red, down $15,000. But sometimes, well, I always say this, it's important to get back on the horse. And sometimes when you get knocked down, you get kicked in the teeth, as I did, you come back up swinging. And I guess that's what happened today, because I ended up having my biggest single trade winner of the entire year this morning. It was on a stock that put out breaking news at 9 a.m. The news was a $180 million private placement to be used for a Bitcoin treasury strategy. Now, if you were tuning in yesterday or you were watching the markets live yesterday, you'll know that there was another stock that put out a very similar headline. In their case, it was a $300 million private placement to be used for a crypto treasury strategy. And let's start with looking at that one on the charts. So I'm going to pull up BREA. So BREA put out this breaking news headline yesterday, but what time did they put it out? They put it out at 9:30 a.m. Now, if we look at this stock, you'll see a couple things. Number one, yesterday it did go up to $54 a share, which is incredible, just under 54. And a couple days ago, it squeezed from about 6 up to 14, but with zero news. In fact, even just earlier yesterday, prior to the news coming out, it spiked up right here, but then dropped back down. So when the news came out at exactly 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, the second the news came out, the stock spiked up. And what happened? It got halted. So it spiked up, and I'm just going to put it right to here. We're going to go auto, and I'm going to go right there. So we'll just do right here. So it spikes up, and it halts going up at 872. So this halted, and at that time, it had only 71,000 shares of volume. That was it. So it halted up at 872. And it resumed. It resumed with an open price of $16.60. It then immediately goes into a second halt at $18.26. And so, in other words, it went up $10 a share, but it didn't trade up. It just jumped higher. So the unfortunate thing is, because this company chose to put out their news after 9:30, it was regular market hours. And so immediately the stock halted. People were not able to trade it. And so while the stock is halted, what's happening that allows it to open higher? During the halt, people see why it halted up. They see that it's news and that it's a big headline. In fact, the same type of headline that has given us some other really big moves this week. Now, or this year. Let's just back this up for 1 second. And I'm just going to show you a couple other charts from this year. So I'm going to just close some of these windows out just to make it a little easier for you. All right, so we're going to look at SBET. SBET is a stock earlier this year that had basically that same catalyst, and the stock squeezed from about $4 a share all the way up to over $124. Then we had, BMNR. BMNR, Bitmine Immersion Technologies. This one, same headline, recent IPO, blue sky setup, goes from $5 to over $150 a share. Same type of headline. ORBS, this is the newest one that we had just last week. This one went from zero, basically $2 a share, $1 a share, to $82. And then we had this week, we had CWD on Monday. Now this one didn't end up holding up very well, which is a little confusing. And then we had another one just the other day. And then of course we had BREA yesterday. So when BREA was halted, unfortunately, there was no way you could trade it. There's nothing you can do but wait. And so during the halt, people are canceling their sell orders. And in fact, they're placing buy orders that will execute immediately upon resumption. And so when the stock resumes, there's now more buyers than there are sellers because of the news, and it resumes higher. But unfortunately, this was virtually untradeable. I make good money between $5 and $20. And it jumped from, 8 to 20 without actually trading up to that level. So I wasn't able to take any trades on it. And even though later in the day it ended up going up to 50, I still didn't take any trades on it because up in this area, well, I thought it was too expensive. That's not a price range where I typically do well. And so, maybe the company will learn a lesson that if you put out news at 9:30 or anytime after the opening bell, you will not get nearly as much volume as if you as if you had put out the news pre-market. When you put out the news pre-market, that's when traders can jump on and there are no halts. And so the stock can just start squeezing, as we saw in CWD on Monday when I made $100,000, and it just keeps going higher and higher and higher. There are no circuit breaker halts during the pre-market session. So it definitely makes a lot more sense for these companies to put out their news pre-market at 7 or 7:30 versus putting it out at 9:30. Okay, so this morning, I broke the ice with my first trade on AGMH, and I went red. Now, frustratingly enough, it's up to $9 right now. This stock has moved higher. It started moving after hours, but guess what? There's no news. So I'm going to actually close this window out here. So we're back to AGMH. So AGMH squeezes up, but I checked the stock. It's a Hong Kong stock. It's a technology stock, but HK Hong Kong makes me nervous. It's a Hong Kong stock up with no news. So I'm thinking, man, can I really trust this? Now, it's currently got 102 million shares of volume. And even earlier this morning when I started trading it, it was around 15, 20 million shares of volume. So it popped up after hours, then it drops down, and then right here coming into 7, we got this nice squeeze. So this caught me a little bit by surprise. At 7 a.m., I had it up. I was watching it as we came up to 7, and I had my order ready to buy at 6. Now, the level that I was watching at the time was a double top versus the 4 a.m. spike. See how we spiked at 4 a.m., then sold off? Well, we've actually seen a number of stocks that have done this, spiked at 4 a.m. and then sold off. And some of these spikes can be algorithmic trading. They start to sort of jump in front of each other as a stock starts moving higher or as it starts going lower. So I was wanting to see it break through 6. So it comes up to 6 here, pre-market, and this was at about 6:50 in the morning. I didn't take a trade on it. I just watched it. And it pulls back right here. And as it pulls back, I'm watching it for a possible trade. And then I said, uh-oh, guys, look, the MACD has gone negative. And look at this pop and drop. I cannot trade this here. So this was 6:59. So I said, nope, MACD's gone negative. Can't trade it. Would love to, but it's probably not going to work. And it's a Chinese stock up with no news, so it carries a bit more risk. It pops up again and drops back down. I was like, boy, this thing is tricky. And then all of a sudden it rips through 6. And I'm thinking, gosh, darn it already. So the MACD flips from negative to positive. It's got 1 million shares of volume on this candle, and it hits 640. Then it goes up to 650 and goes up to 660. I got in at 670 right here, and I was just looking for the squeeze up to $7 a share. So in at 670, stop with 650, risking 20 cents. We got the move up to 7. And actually on that first trade, I misspoke. On that first trade, I made $2,000. Actually, it was $2,900, just under $3,000. It hits a high of 705. So I'm like, okay, decent, but not incredible. So then it dips back down here. So this is 703, 704. And I actually added back right here. Inside that candle, I added back. Oh boy. So let me show you what I did there. Let's pull it up on a 10-second chart. So I added back right there. Zoom in. See how we popped up to 7? We dipped down. I added back right here. And I think that I was feeling a little bit frustrated that I had missed this nice trade down here because the MACD was negative. I count on the MACD to help keep me out of bad trades, but it kept me out of a good trade on this one. So I increased my my order size from 5,000 shares to 10,000. And I punch it 1, 2, 3, 4 times. I've got 40,000 shares. I'm like, here we go. This thing's going to break 7. Let's see a squeeze up to 750. Well, that's not what happened. It hit 704. It didn't break. it drops down here and I sell for a loss. In fact, I lost 10,000. So I went from green just about 3,000 to red about 7,000. So now I'm kind of gritting my teeth a little bit. I'm like, you son of a gun. And not a moment later, this thing rips up to 740. I was like, you have got to be kidding me right now. So I said, just take a breath, take a breath. You're good, you're good. So it pulls back right here. And so on my next trade, I end up adding, and this is about 710, I add at $7.35 right here. So I add right here, and I'm looking for this ABCD pattern. And let's see what happens. Once again, it doesn't work. Yes, it popped up for a second, but it didn't hold, and I couldn't get out. I mean, I guess I could have, but I just held and was looking for that bigger move, and it didn't work. Now on this one, and this is probably in hindsight showing where I was getting a bit emotionally activated, because I increased my block from 10,000 shares to 15. Now I only pressed it twice, but nonetheless, that's a big position. So I got in this here. We hit a high of, what was this? 53, drops down. I'm red on that. Now I'm down 15,000 on the day. So I'm feeling frustrated. I had these one small winner and then two decent sized losses. So now I'm sitting tight. It pulls back. I take the loss. Then around 8:15, it comes back up. So I sit tight. I'm waiting. I'm kind of wallowing in my misery. I'm just like, this is so annoying. And the problem was there was nothing better to trade. There was nothing that looked cleaner. This was our leading gainer. It just wasn't that clean. So then it squeezes back up here. And I'm thinking, all right, well, I was watching it right here and I didn't trade it. Why didn't I trade it right there? Well, I had drawn an ascending resistance trend line. And I thought, I don't know if I should buy it right underneath this level. It rejected it here. And this is actually connecting these two dots here. So it rejected it previously here, rejected it here. So I was like, it's not going to work. Surely it's not going to work, but it works. No, it works. Goes all the way up to 760. So I bought this micro pullback right there. And on that one, I bought 35,000 shares. So, no, I'm sorry, 45,000 shares. So I got in 45,000 shares right there. It goes up to 760 and then kind of stalls out. So I got in and out of that for about $2,000 of profit, $2,500. So I'm still red on the day, but it didn't make a big difference. Didn't really work. It dips down. It comes back up again. And when it comes back up again, I said, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me, and this is now about 7 times in a row. Shame on me. But as they always say, it's the 8th time that's the charm. And so I got back in right here at 760. It squeezed up to 790. And I said, should I sell here? And my voice said, yes, you should sell. And my heart said you should sell. And then the part of me that had gotten kicked in the teeth said, no, don't sell. You add. This is where you add. And sure enough, it broke 790 here. And this thing squeezed all the way up to a high of 867. I was kind of impressed. But that ended up marking the high of day. So I ended up making about, it was from down 12,000 or so to up 5,000 on the day, just on that swing. So it was a big swing. Now, by the way, right now, as of right now, this thing, it really smarts to see this, because it's now at $11 a share. So holy smokes, this thing, and it's really tricky, because you could see it popped up, it sold off. It came back up, and then we call this candle here a jackknife. The pop and the flush. Those are very risky candles. It reclaims the top of the jackknife, $9, goes up to $9.50. Halts up, opens, dip, and a rip up to 11. Normally I like that dip and rip setup, but I was already recording the recap. Hits a high there of 11.50, another little jackknife down to 10.50. Now back up. So it's going to keep doing jackknives. Now that it's done it a couple times, it'll keep doing it. Look, it is a Chinese stock up with no news. What's crazy to me right now is that this is up 400% with no news. And yet ZOOZ is up only 33%. That's the stock I made the most money on. So let's switch gears. So let's look at ZOOZ. By the way, let me just say something. I have a special announcement that is coming, and I'm going to post it as a video on the YouTube channel tomorrow morning, Saturday morning. So it's going to be a long form, full training episode. So clear your schedule. You can watch this long episode tomorrow. And there's going to be a couple of really cool components. I don't want to give too much away right now, but I will be donating a substantial amount of money to charity, and you'll learn more about that in tomorrow's episode. But everyone that watches the episode and who hits that thumbs up and subscribes to the channel through tomorrow's episode will have a chance to increase the total amount of money that I'm going to donate. And part of it is related to crossing a pretty big milestone. But there's, I'm getting ahead of myself. So ZOOZ. Okay, so this stock this morning, holy smokes. Wow. This is a swing straight up. So what happened here? All right, so so at this point in the day, I had gone down $15,000 and then kind of miraculously made my way back to green 5,000. And I was taking too much risk while I was in the red. So this wasn't a good example of following the rules of position management that I lay out for you guys. In fact, I was doing the opposite. I was increasing my size out of frustration when I was going deeper red. This can lead to a snowball and a spiral. So I'm really fortunate today that disaster was averted. But it was thanks really to the luck of the market, not to my own trading. So I basically was like, you're up 5,000, call it a day. I think you're done. So this was about 9 a.m. I said, I'm done for the day. I'm not gonna, I already had a close call. This is ridiculous. So, but then ZOOZ pops up on our scanners. So these are the scanners, of course, that I'm using right here. And for all of you guys who do 2-week trials at Warrior Trading, it's 2 weeks for $20. You guys get access to these scanners. Even when I'm done trading for the day, you can still keep using the scanners. So you load them from the dashboard. You've got this whole window. You can pop it out, make a bunch of versions of it, etc. So ZOOZ hits the scanner. So let's go back to this. What time was it? You can see the scanners were kind of like light today. I'm already back at 5 a.m. So there wasn't a whole lot that was moving. 7:10, 8 a.m. And VRCA, this one popped up. It was easy to borrow. Left that one alone. AGMH, got the trade on that. NBY, a little cheaper. So really nothing much. And then ZOOZ hits the scanner right here at $3.05 at 9 a.m. Now, when it first hit the scanner, I was sitting here because I was checking to see if there'd be news at the top of the hour, just in case. But I was pretty much, I didn't expect to take any more trades. And so ZOOZ pops up, and immediately I'm like, nah, I don't know. So why did I immediately think that? Because I remembered it from this day back here. This was just on the 16th. So this was on Tuesday. And it popped up from 230 up to 350 and then came right back down. Now, and actually, let's just double check this. Let's just see if there was a headline on the 16th or if that was a no news pop. There was no news on the 16th. So that actually rings very similarly true to BRAA, which a couple days before the news came out, it had a big pop. Very interesting. So what that tells me, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but that tells me that there are some people that knew this news was coming, which is called insider trading. It's illegal. And yet we've been seeing more of it this year than I've ever seen before, and specifically on companies involved in crypto. I don't know, if they just don't care. It's so obvious. So it's something that I've been aware of and noticing. So ZOOZ, it pops up a couple days ago, then it drops down. So when it first hit the scanner, I was like, nah, I don't know. And I was kind of zoomed in on the daily chart here, so I was like, nah, I don't know. But then it starts to move. And so what ends up happening on this one, and I'm going to switch to the 10-second chart so you can see it better. It basically has 4 green candles in a row where it goes up 300%, 297%. So it squeezes here from 250 up to 3 again, pulls back, goes up to 350, pulls back, and pops up to just under 4. So right here, I was like, well, shoot. I mean, this is moving. there's no denying that this thing is moving. It's up probably, 100% at that point, 89%. So I said, all right, you know what? It's moving. So I pulled up the level 2, and I took my first trade on it right here. So what happened was it squeezed up towards 4, and I bought 5,000 shares. I was back to a 5,000 share block on this. Nothing crazy. Bought 5,000 shares at 380, added at 388, added at 4, and added at 416. And I was looking for the squeeze through this new high. And it ended up, and this was before this candle. So this is sort of what we were working with right here. So I got in, right down here, basically. Little pullback, got in right in this area, breaks 4, goes up to 420, and I take some profit off the table, and I'm up about $5,000 on it. And I was like, that was unexpected, but you know what? Nice. That's awesome. So now I'm up just under 10,000 on the day. So that was a nice, unexpected surprise. So it pops up here to 450, it kind of dips down, pops up to 450, dips down. And so then I said, well, this is really interesting because now we're kind of coming into the open, but this is quite obvious. So I had my daily chart and I scrolled out like this. And I said, oh, wait a second. This is a blue sky setup over 460. That's all-time highs. So now I'm like, all right, a blue sky setup. We know that we can get some big moves on that. And at this point, I hadn't even checked the news. It's not uncommon for me to take quick scalps, little breakout trades on something moving, even if I haven't seen the news, just because I'm focusing on the level 2 and I'm just taking quick trades. So I'm like, it's moving, I'll just trade it. So then I look over at the news and I see shareholders approve a $100 million private placement Bitcoin treasury reserve strategy. And I'm like, here we go. This is the same type of headline that we had on BRAA yesterday, except it's pre-market. So now I'm like, wow, this is something I really have to pay attention to. So at that point, I increased my share size and I said, let's go. And as it broke over right here, I'm in full size. So I'm like, and look at this candle. This candle goes from 460. See, the thing is, we double topped against blue sky. And there were some sellers here. So we basically came right to this 460 level, which was, a double top from that level, but also some resistance here. So my suspicion is that there were some traders who were shorting against this level, thinking maybe the stock didn't even have news. Because just like I take trades very quickly without seeing the news, there are shorts that do the same. And so they're shorting against this level, which, granted, that's a valid level. It's double top blue sky. And we had that same thing happen on TURB. Remember TURB from earlier in the week? So TURB right here, this was blue sky at 790. And you remember that pre-market chart? Let's look at the 5-minute chart on this one. So it's like so similar. So TURB comes right up to this level right here, and it fades. Now it ends up coming up later, but that was resistance. So, and this was a win for shorts. It came from $8 all the way back down to 450. And then, yes, it rallied later, which was awesome. But, initially it reversed. So I think on ZOOZ, something similar happened where shorts were shorting against that level. I had already jumped in and then gotten out. And on one of my trades here, I think I added right here on this little dip and it popped up and it didn't work. And I was like, I don't know. And then it came back up this time and I'm just adding. And I just added straight up. So the way I do that is when a stock starts moving really quickly, essentially when I first get in, my max loss is the low of the pullback, which is down here. And then when I'm adding up here and adding up here and adding up here, I'm moving my mental max loss up. So basically, I'm trying to add to a winner, a position that's going higher, but also if it comes down, take my profit off the table. And so up here, I'm adding, and I'm not selling. And so let's see. All right, so I ended up taking I took 15,000 shares of profit at 779. So that must have been like right up here, 779, right up there. This was, yeah, right in that candle. And then it held that level and it broke over 8. And then I added back the shares I sold. I added back 15,000 shares at 820 and it squeezes up to 9. So all of a sudden I'm up 15,000 just on that position. So then I take 10,000 shares of profit at 850 and I take another 12,000 shares of profit up around $9 a share. And now it dips down and I add on the dip down here and I'm looking for this bounce back up. Now, we did get a bounce back up, as you could see right here, but unfortunately, this was the peak. And I did take profit. I took profit up here and then added back down here, took some profit up here, and then added back again right here for the break back over 7 and sold here for a loss. And so that was my last trade on it, and it was a loss. I gave back a little profit off the top. And I always kind of say that I want to trade until I start losing. And I won't know that I've really hit my peak until I've given back a little. Because if I just walk away at my peak without giving back profit, maybe I could have made a lot more. Now, you could argue I could have made a lot more today if I kept trading and switched gears to AGMH. And while this is true, I did find AGMH to be difficult to trade. And I think that it was probably not a bad idea that I took the profit off the table. Because one of the things with having a big red day is a big red day can cause you to get emotionally compromised. But a big green day can also get you emotionally compromised because now you've got this sense of confidence that, wow, I can just take huge size and everything is working. Next thing you know, I'm taking, 20,000 share blocks and I'm up to 100,000 shares of AGMH. And then in an instant, I lose 100 grand. So on days like today are when I have my biggest losers because I'm up $232,000 on the day. I've got such a big cushion, I can afford to take risk. Now, there was a day 2 weeks ago where I was up $185,000 and I literally lost 100 grand off the top in 2 trades, $50,000 losses on both of them. That's a lot of money to lose. I didn't want to do that today. And maybe part of that was because I started the day in the red. I got kicked in the teeth. I came back out swinging and we got a really good move. But you know what's interesting? BREA is still at $29 a share. It's a $300 million private placement versus 180. ZOZ has come all the way back down to 3. CWD from earlier in the week came all the way back down as well. So I haven't figured out why some of them, like SBED or BMNR, will keep going, will hold up and even keep pushing higher. No, it's not this one, BMNR. And why others will do this reversal. And even this one made this huge move and then gave it all back. And I mean, it's still holding, I guess it didn't give it all back, but so I haven't quite cracked the code of knowing which one is going to continue to hold. And I don't know if anyone has. This is ultimately one of the big challenges with trading. But I do know a few things. I know that if a stock meets a pretty close profile of these previous big moves in terms of the catalyst, so crypto treasury catalyst, with a private placement. Now, it can't just be a crypto treasury catalyst. I could start a crypto treasury. I mean, not that Warrior Trading is a publicly traded company, but I could say, oh, we're going to buy $10,000 of Bitcoin and put it on the balance sheet. That's a crypto treasury strategy. That's it. So that headline is not worthy of the stock going up 300% if it's only, $10,000, even $100,000. Doesn't matter. But when it's, I just received $300 million from an institution and they want me to put that full $300 million into a cryptocurrency and keep it on my balance sheet, and they're now investors in my company, that's a big deal because now your company becomes a vehicle for other people to invest in the profits that cryptocurrency makes, right? So, so basically at this point, I need to see the crypto treasury catalyst. It needs to be tied in with a private placement. The price of the stock should be preferably between, $3 and $20. If it starts too high, it's too expensive, I can't afford it. If it's too cheap, I mean, it might work, but I haven't seen those that have worked very well. And then the float, the total number of shares available to trade, should be lower. BMNR was 1.5 million shares. BREA was 2.3. SBET, SBET sold shares, so that's different. It wasn't this high previously. It was very, very low. Let's see, CWD is 1.5 million shares. Now, ZOZ is 9.5 million. So it is 4 times higher than some of the others. So there's more people that own shares that could have sold today into profit when the stock was at all-time highs. It's possible. I don't know the rhyme or reason. CWD, though, was very low, and it's still sold off. So at this point, the best thing I can do is assemble sort of the profile of the type of stocks that are making these moves, knowing that some of them might end up going up to $50, $70, $80 a share, maybe 100 or higher. And others will squeeze up, maybe only $5 a share, $10 a share, maybe higher, but we'll give it all back. And so what's important is that if the trade's no longer working, I cut my loss. That's probably the most important thing, because in case you haven't heard me say it before, trading is risky. Easy come, easy go. You've seen me make 100,000, you've seen me lose 100,000, all within one day. So it's easy to make and lose large amounts of money in the market. And so the best thing you can do is develop a strategy, a system, and a set of rules of where you're going to buy and where you're going to sell and the type of stocks you're willing to trade. And of course, that's what I'm doing really every day and putting it on demonstration for you really in a live classroom at Warrior Trading. So I want to remind you all, please take it slow. This is a good time to be practicing in a simulator. The market is heating up. I'm really grateful for that, but don't worry. You're not missing anything. There will be more opportunity in the future. So if you're a beginner trader, focus on trading the sim and building your skill set. Remember, tomorrow we've got a big upload coming to YouTube, so make sure you guys are tuned in for it. I think you're going to be excited. I think you're really going to enjoy it. And make sure you start your 2-week trial sometime this weekend so you can be tuned in bright and early, 7 a.m. on Monday to watch me trading, because something special is happening. All right, so with that, I'm going to let you guys enjoy the rest of the day, and I'll see you in the comments on tomorrow's upload.